When a young child has a meltdown, most parents look at the behavior first, not the feeling underneath it. They see crying, screaming, throwing, refusing, hiding, or hitting, and naturally want the behavior to stop right away. That reaction makes sense because intense behavior feels urgent, stressful, loud, and often deeply frustrating for adults. But what many parents miss in that moment is something psychologically important and developmentally very normal. For children between 3 and 5 years old, behavior is often the visible surface of an invisible emotional struggle. What looks like defiance may actually be overwhelm. What looks like drama may actually be distress. What looks like stubbornness may sometimes be fear, exhaustion, disappointment, confusion, or a loss of control. Young children do not experience emotions in the calm, organized way adults often expect them to. Their feelings arrive quickly, strongly, and physically, often before they have words to explain what happened inside. So when parents only correct the behavior, they may miss the emotional lesson the child most needs. And that lesson is this: big feelings need guidance, not just control. A 3-year-old usually cannot say, "I feel overstimulated and disappointed because my expectation changed suddenly." A 4-year-old rarely says, "I feel embarrassed, powerless, and emotionally flooded by this situation." A 5-year-old may still struggle to recognize that anger is covering sadness, shame, or fear. So instead of speaking clearly, children act out what they cannot yet sort out. This is why emotional intelligence begins long before children can explain their thoughts in mature language. It begins when adults learn to read behavior as communication, not only as disobedience. That does not mean every behavior is acceptable. It means every behavior has meaning. And when adults understand the meaning, they respond with much more wisdom and much less unnecessary force. This single shift can change not only a moment, but a child's long-term emotional development. Many parents were taught to focus on obedience first, emotion second, and inner experience hardly at all. So when their child cries intensely over something small, adults may think the child is being unreasonable. The problem is that small events can feel very big inside a young child's nervous system. A broken cracker, the wrong cup, a rushed transition, or a denied request can trigger deep instability. To the adult, it may be a tiny inconvenience. To the child, it may feel like emotional chaos. That difference matters because children do not need adults to measure the size of the problem. They need adults to help them survive the feeling the problem created inside them. This is where many emotional moments go wrong between parents and young children. The child is overwhelmed and seeking regulation, but the adult sees only noise, disruption, and inconvenience. Then the adult reacts to the surface while the child is drowning underneath it. When that happens, the child often becomes louder, more rigid, or more emotionally shut down, not because the child wants power, but because the child feels less understood and less safe. Feeling misunderstood often intensifies emotion, especially in children whose emotional systems are still immature. A child who feels unseen may escalate because escalation is the only language left in the moment. That is why emotional safety is not softness. It is psychological support during emotional overload. Children ages 3 to 5 still rely heavily on adults to borrow calm, structure, and interpretation. This is called co-regulation, and it is one of the foundations of healthy emotional development. Co-regulation means the adult becomes a steady anchor when the child cannot steady themselves yet. The calm voice, the regulated face, the clear boundary, and the warm presence all teach something. They teach the child that emotions can be felt without becoming dangerous, shameful, or completely out of control. Without this support, young children may learn to fear their feelings instead of understanding them. Some children react outwardly and become explosive. Others react inwardly and become quiet, frozen, or withdrawn. Both types of children may be struggling with the same basic issue: emotional overload without enough support. This is why it is risky to label children too quickly as dramatic, difficult, spoiled, or manipulative. Labels often oversimplify behavior that is actually rooted in developmental limits and emotional stress. A child who cannot regulate well is not the same as a child who does not care. A child who melts down easily is not automatically disrespectful or intentionally controlling. Often, the child simply has a nervous system that is overloaded beyond current skill capacity. Skill capacity is a key idea that many parents do not think about during emotional moments. Children are not born knowing how to calm themselves, express themselves, wait, tolerate frustration, or recover gracefully. These are learned emotional skills, and they develop slowly through repeated, guided experiences with adults. In other words, regulation is taught through relationship before it becomes internal self-control. So when a parent says, "You are fine, stop crying," the child may hear emotional dismissal. But when a parent says, "This feels really hard for you right now," the child hears recognition. Recognition reduces emotional loneliness. And emotional loneliness is often hidden inside intense behavior. Children calm more easily when they feel accompanied in their distress rather than abandoned inside it. That does not mean parents must fix every problem or remove every frustration. It means they first help the child organize the emotional experience before trying to teach the lesson. For example, imagine a child crying because playtime ended and it is time to leave the park. The adult may think, "This child is overreacting. We come here often. It is not a big deal." But inside the child, there may be grief, disappointment, loss of control, and a hard transition. Young children do not move between activities as smoothly as adults usually want them to. Transitions can feel abrupt, especially when the child was absorbed, excited, or emotionally invested. If the parent only says, "Stop it, we are leaving, that is enough," the child loses two things. First, the joy of the activity ends. Second, the emotional experience is not acknowledged. That double loss often intensifies the protest and increases the child's sense of instability. But if the parent says, "You wish you could stay longer, leaving feels hard," the child softens. The limit remains the same, but the child now feels emotionally seen inside the limit. This is one of the most powerful parenting skills in early childhood. You can hold the boundary and still honor the feeling. In fact, boundaries often work better when feelings are acknowledged first. Children become more cooperative when they do not have to fight to prove their inner reality exists. This is especially important because children ages 3 to 5 are just beginning emotional language. They know what they feel in the body long before they can explain it in words. Their hearts race, muscles tighten, breathing changes, and their behavior becomes more reactive. When adults name feelings for them, the child begins building an inner emotional map. That map may start with simple words like sad, mad, scared, frustrated, tired, and disappointed. Later, it can grow into more complex feelings like embarrassed, worried, jealous, lonely, or confused. But none of that development happens well if adults skip the naming process. Children who cannot name what they feel are more likely to act it out physically. That is why emotional vocabulary is not extra. It is foundational. It gives children a bridge between inner chaos and outward communication. And that bridge reduces impulsive behavior over time. So what are parents really missing when their child has big feelings? They are often missing the unmet need, the vulnerable feeling, or the undeveloped skill beneath the behavior. Sometimes the hidden issue is exhaustion. Sometimes it is hunger. Sometimes it is overstimulation. Sometimes it is grief over change, embarrassment after correction, or frustration over limited control. Sometimes it is simply the child reaching the edge of what their nervous system can manage. Adults often ask, how do I stop this behavior? When the deeper question is different. The better question is, what is happening inside my child right now that this behavior is expressing? That question opens the door to emotional intelligence for both parent and child. It also helps parents respond with curiosity instead of immediate judgment. Curiosity changes tone. Tone changes safety. Safety changes what the child can learn. This is why a parent's regulation matters as much as the child's behavior in emotional moments. If the adult becomes louder, harsher, and more threatening, the child's system usually becomes more defensive. The brain does not learn well when it feels attacked, cornered, or emotionally unsafe. That is true for adults, and it is certainly true for young children. This does not mean parents must stay perfectly calm every time. No parent can do that. But the goal is to move towards steadiness more often, because steadiness teaches. Before speaking, it helps to slow the body, lower the voice, and soften the face. Children read nervous systems faster than they understand sentences. A tense body can feel frightening, even when the words sound reasonable. A calm body can feel reassuring, even before many words are spoken. Then comes the next step, naming the likely feeling with simple language. You seem really upset. That felt disappointing. You did not want that to happen. These phrases are not magical, but they are deeply regulating for many children. They help the child feel less alone and less chaotic. After that, the parent can hold a clear limit if the behavior is unsafe or hurtful. You are allowed to be angry. I will not let you hit me. You are allowed to be sad. I will help you keep your body safe. You are allowed to be frustrated. I will not let you throw hard toys. This kind of language teaches an essential emotional principle. All feelings are acceptable. Not all behaviors are acceptable. That message protects both emotional truth and social responsibility. It tells children they do not have to hide what they feel, but they do have to learn how to express it safely. That is a much healthier lesson than simply teaching children to suppress emotion. Suppression may create quiet children, but not always emotionally healthy children. Some children become outwardly obedient while inwardly anxious, ashamed, or disconnected from themselves. Real emotional growth is not silence. It is awareness, expression, recovery, and repair. Repair is another important part that parents often miss after big emotional moments. Once the child is calm, that is the time for gentle teaching and reflection. Not during the height of the meltdown, when the child's brain is overwhelmed. After calm returns, the parent can say, "Next time, tell me you are mad." Or, "Next time, say help please instead of throwing." Or, "Next time, stomp your feet on the floor, not on your brother." Children need replacement behaviors, not just correction. They need to know what to do, not only what not to do. This is how emotional intelligence becomes practical in everyday parenting. We notice the feeling, contain the behavior, support regulation, and teach alternatives after calm stuff. That process may sound simple, but repeated over time, it shapes a child's inner life. The child slowly learns, my feelings make sense, even when my behavior needs guidance. That belief reduces shame and increases self-understanding. And self-understanding is one of the strongest roots of emotional resilience. Many parents worry that validating feelings will make children weak, entitled, or too dependent. But healthy validation does not create weakness. It creates emotional clarity and trust. Children become stronger when they learn that difficult feelings can be faced, named, and survived. They do not become strong by feeling alone, humiliated, or chronically misunderstood. Strength grows when support and challenge are balanced in developmentally appropriate ways. That balance is especially important between ages 3 and 5, when the emotional system is still very young. At this age, children need adults to lend them language, calm, meaning, and perspective. They cannot yet do all of that independently, and they are not supposed to. So the next time your child has big feelings, pause before correcting the surface behavior. Ask yourself, what feeling, need, or undeveloped skill might be underneath this reaction? That one question changes the entire emotional climate of the moment. It helps you move from control to guidance, from frustration to understanding, from reaction to leadership. And it helps your child feel seen, safe, and more ready to learn something meaningful. Because big feelings are not just interruptions to parenting. They are opportunities for emotional teaching. And that may be the very thing 90% of parents miss in the hardest moments. When we look beneath the behavior, we do not just stop problems. We raise emotionally intelligent children.